What is going on, y'all? Today I have my final and full review on the ASICS Megablasts. So I do want to preface this with saying that ASICS did not send me this shoe. I did buy this shoe 100% with my own money, unfortunately. So yeah, this review is going to be super honest. My pockets are still hurting, still recovering from it. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get right into the full review. So as always, we are going to start off with the outsole of the ASICS Megablast. As you can see, it looks a lot like a lot of other ASICS running shoes. And honestly, this traction pattern worked really well for me. I live in Southern California, so the weather conditions as well as the road conditions are pretty ideal. I didn't really run in these in water besides a couple of puddles here and there. And also, the worst conditions on the road that I pretty much ran in were sandy roads near the beach. And overall, the traction did very well. So, typically for me, I feel like ASICS running shoes have kind of some of the worst traction, I would say, or some of the worst outsoles, I would say, out of like all the major running brands when it comes to durability as well as traction. But with the ASICS Mega Blast, I'm pleased to say that the traction on this outsole was definitely a little bit better than a lot of the other ASICS shoes that I personally have, like the Nova Blast 5s, the ASICS Magic Speed 4s, as well as the ASICS Super Blast 2s. I don't know exactly if that's like there's a scientific way to test the traction performance, but just from my personal experience, even in a couple of puddles, as well as just like sandy roads and whatnot, this traction for me felt like the best out of all of those shoes, and my feet felt really good as I was planting for my next stride or if I was making turns and whatnot. Definitely felt a little bit better than a lot of the other ASIC shoes, but again, that's not really saying much. Also, this shoe is $225. I'm going to keep talking about that price, so keep that in mind. But I would say that the traction was definitely average to slightly above average in the ASICS Mega Blast. When it comes to durability of this outsole, they do provide a pretty thick layer on the outsole, which is always good. So hopefully it lasts a long time because you're spending all that money. But overall, I have about 40 miles on this shoe right now. And I mean, honestly, it's doing pretty well. Like with ASIC shoes too, like I feel like as a bigger runner for myself, the cushion as well as the outsole durability is a little bit kind of suspect or a little bit sketchy for me personally. I'm 200 pounds, 6'1", and my Nova Blast 5s, like after 100 miles, they're basically like gone, or at least a lot of the outsole is kind of like wearing down really quickly, as well as the cushion setup. But with the Mega Blast, with 40 miles on this shoe, it's definitely holding up better than the Nova Blast. I can say that for a fact. The Super Blast 2s, I have a little bit under 100 miles, like I think around 90 to 95 now. And that outsole is also wearing down in the forefoot. Obviously, this shoe doesn't have near the mileage of those other two shoes, but I do think that this traction setup is going to last a little bit longer, and I would hope so at the price. But yeah, that's just my hypothesis. It's not scientific at all, and it's just me guessing that this outsole is going to last a little bit longer. So take that with a grain of salt. We'll only know as I put more miles on the shoe. So let me know in the comment section down below if you guys want me to do a 100-mile review on the Mega Blast, because I can definitely keep wearing these and keep testing them to see how the outsole holds up. So overall, the outsole on the Mega Blast was definitely good. It was not great. The traction, like I said, was definitely a little bit above average, and then the durability seems to be holding up decently well. Now, moving on to the main event of the Mega Blast, we're going to talk about this chunky monkey midsole right here, full length FF Turbo squared, I believe. And I think in the comment section down below with my first run review of this shoe, I believe y'all told me that this is an ATPU midsole. We have 45 millimeters of stack height in the heel, dropping to 37 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot, giving it an 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. So I believe that's around the same, if not the same, as the ASICS Super Blast 2. And I'm just kind of going to tell you guys how I experienced this midsole for me personally. I'm not super into the specs or super into, I guess, the compound of foam and whatnot. I'm just going to tell you guys how it felt for me and my running needs. So I'm basically training for a marathon. I did do a 19-mile long run in this shoe, as well as a lot of recovery runs, some faster runs and whatnot. I did a wide range just to see if this shoe could really do it all, especially at that price point. And overall, the cushion setup really did amaze me. I mean, price aside, like if I didn't kind of think about my wallet or the price, This cushion setup was fantastic. Definitely the best that ASICS has to offer in their non-plated lineup of running shoes, which is to be expected. This is the most expensive shoe that they have. But overall, I found that the impact protection was really good. The setup was definitely the most bouncy, especially compared to the Super Blast 2s, which I will do a full comparison if you guys want that. And overall, like, I thought that this midsole was fun to run in. It was a little bit more energetic than a lot of other ASICS running shoes, as well as the impact protection was decent. I do want to note that on my 19-mile long run, one of my knees started hurting a little bit, but that's also not maybe due to the shoe. It could be due to me. Like, I'm kind of in the peak of training right now and just running a lot of mileage, so I'm gonna say that that's maybe more on me. But I thought that the impact protection on the shoe was really good, especially when you're running like 10 miles and under. This shoe absorbed a lot of impact from me. It basically felt like I didn't run a lot of the times, which is always a good sign. And if I were to say that this shoe shines in a particular pace, I would say around marathon pace for me personally, which is around 8:45 per mile to maybe 9:15 per mile, is where this shoe kind of shined. The midsole is extremely lightweight, it's bouncy, it absorbs a lot of impact. It is more maybe on the firm side than the soft side, so keep that in mind. If you like really soft shoes, this might not be the one for you, but if you like responsive, lightweight setups, then this shoe is going to be very, very fun and comfortable to run in. I also do want to note, in my 19-mile long run, as like I kind of compress the foam over the course of the longer run. A lot of shoes do this for me personally, maybe because I am a heavier runner. I did feel like the forefoot started to not bottom out, but it didn't have as much energy return as when I first started the run. So don't exactly know the science behind that or whatnot, but basically, like, when I was running in the shoe for multiple hours, the forefoot maybe wasn't as bouncy as it was at the start of the run. But I mean, don't be alarmed. Like, the next day, once you let the shoe kind of rest and settle, they do still feel bouncy in the forefoot. I would just say that that's more of a problem if you are doing longer runs. But the impact protection properties are still in the midsole, and it still is very comfortable. I would just say that the midsole kind of changes its feel throughout longer runs for me personally. So overall, this setup is one of the best on the market that you could buy. I mean, again, for the price point, you're definitely paying for it. I'm not exactly agreeing with the price point of this shoe, but I mean, at least they kind of delivered. I would be kind of mad if the midsole wasn't amazing. So midsole was very comfortable, very lightweight. Again, more on the firm side, responsive. Maybe if you're a heavier guy like me and you're doing longer runs, just don't expect the responsiveness to be 100% there as you get to those later mileage. Like, if you're running a marathon in these two, like maybe miles 20 to 26, it's not going to feel as bouncy as it did at the start of the run. So that's something to keep in mind. Really going to quickly touch on stability of the shoe. This is a higher stack running shoe, but in my experience, it was decently stable. I mean, that also kind of goes hand in hand with the heel lockdown, which we'll talk about in the upper section. But overall, the midsole was as stable as it could probably be for a stack height this high. Again, it is a firmer setup, so that has it going for the stability side of things. And overall, if you run typically in neutral running shoes as well as higher stack running shoes, you're not going to have a problem with stability on these. Now, if you are running a lot in stability shoes, this is probably not going to be the best option, but you probably already knew that before clicking on this video. But if you typically run in neutral running shoes, this is going to be plenty stable in my opinion for you. So that's going to pretty much wrap up the cushion setup of the ASICS Megablast. Again, one of the best setups that I've worn. Is it worth the $225 price? I'll probably talk to you guys in the conclusion on that, so you can either skip forward or continue watching. But we are going to talk about the upper of the ASICS Megablast next. So the upper on the ASICS Megablast is kind of this really thin synthetic mesh material, very, very thin, very lightweight, but I will say that it is a little bit on the rigid side. I'm going to touch on fit first. These do fit true to size. It's a little bit more snug than a regular daily trainer, but it's not as tight as maybe a race day shoe. So it's kind of in that in between. I have a slightly wider than average foot, and I typically wear size 12 regular on all of my running shoes, and that's the size that I got in the Megablast. And for the most part, it fit my foot perfectly fine. So I would recommend going true to size if you can't try the shoe on in store. I do want to note though that since this upper is a little bit more on the rigid side, even after I ran 40 miles in the shoe, the upper hasn't really softened up too much, or I mean, it's started to mold more to my foot, but it's not like the softest upper that you'll feel, which also has good properties too because it provides a little bit more structure. But the one discomfort that I had with the upper, especially I noticed it on my longer runs or runs over 5 miles, is that in the toe box, there is this part that kind of, it doesn't chafe on my big toe, but it definitely, I can feel it pressing on my big toe, and it's just a little bit of discomfort with you know, a shoe being $225, you would expect not to feel any discomfort and you would expect the shoe to maybe run for you. But I do want to note that the toe box is a little bit rigid and I did feel that poking my big toe, but it didn't really honestly cause any problems. It's just a mild discomfort that I was kind of like, dude, when is this gonna break in or is this going to go away? But it never really went away after 40 miles. So maybe if I do a 100-mile review, I'll let you guys know if that little, there's like a little divot if you can see on the toe box. I do have the white colorway, so it's a little bit hard to see. But yeah, it was specifically on my left shoe. It was just rubbing the top of my big toe. So not the most fun. But overall, the upper, yeah, it's okay. I wouldn't maybe put this as the best upper I've ever worn in a running shoe, but it is extremely lightweight. It's rigid and provides support where it needs to. The midfoot lockdown, the forefoot lockdown were really, really good. And it also maintained all of that with being such a lightweight upper. Now, when we go to the back of the shoe, the heel lockdown wasn't perfect. I would say it's like 95% perfect. I did do the runner's loop. It does have a gusseted, pretty thin tongue. The laces also, they will bite into your ankles if you tie them really tight, which happened to me the first couple of runs in the shoe. But overall, that kind of broke in and my heel lockdown got a little bit better as I wore the shoe more. But yeah, 95% locked in on the heel lockdown. And then as for the laces themselves, they are ribbed laces, which is really nice. So they're kind of like race day laces where I love these laces because they don't really get undone super easily. So I personally really like the rib laces. If they could put that on every running shoe, that'd be awesome. But yeah, overall, the upper was a little bit rigid for my liking, but extremely lightweight. As for the breathability, I personally didn't really notice like too much breathability, but when you do the light test, since it is such a thin upper, you can see a lot of light peeking through, which would mean that there is really good breathability in this running shoe. But overall, it wasn't super breathable for me. But again, that's just my experience. I think that you will have a little bit more breathability than most typical running shoes. So overall, the upper was pretty good. It wasn't like fantastic or great. I think that the highlight of the shoe was definitely the midsole, but we'll talk more about that in the conclusion aspect. So overall, get your true size, break in the upper. It's lightweight, supportive, still breathable, but maybe not the most comfortable materials. I'm not a huge fan of the materials, as well as the heel lockdown was 95% there, but it wasn't perfect. So that is the upper on the ASICS Megablast. So overall, what do I think of the ASICS Megablast? I think for $225, let's be real. I think that it's not going to be worth it for everyone. I think it's going to be worth it for maybe shoe enthusiasts like myself. You know, maybe you can be a shoe enthusiast and then not super fast. That's kind of like me. Or if you're, super fast and a shoe enthusiast, I think you'll really like this shoe. And then if you're just a really fast runner as well, I think you will find really good purpose for these shoes, maybe as like a fast long run shoe. You'll also probably reap the rewards of it being such a lightweight, high impact protection shoe. But I think for the wide majority of runners, obviously this shoe is a little bit overkill. If you want to treat yourself, or if you're a shoe enthusiast like myself, then you can definitely buy this shoe and it's going to be one of the maybe better shoes in your rotation or one of the best shoes that you've worn. I personally think that maybe for $225 though, it's not really worth it. In my opinion, I would prefer to have the Nike Vomero Plus for $180, which is $45 cheaper than this shoe. Or if you don't even want to buy the Vomero Plus too, like I think that you can get by just fine with a regular daily trainer. I do think that this shoe is a little bit overkill. If you want like the best of the best, then yeah, $225 is a steep price, but you are going to get a lot of value, I guess, in that aspect, because this shoe can replace multiple shoes in your rotation. But overall, I think for the wide majority of people, I think $225 is just too much. I also don't think that maybe you need this to run too. I think you can run in a lot of other shoes, especially shoes that go on sale and stuff, like last year's models and stuff. I just think that if you're a shoe enthusiast, or if you're a very elite runner, or just a really good runner too, like you can use these in your training sessions, and they're going to be very comfortable, very fast. Especially the properties without a plate too is very enticing. But I think for wide majority of runners, unless money is no option, I don't think that these shoes are worth it in my opinion. That's just my honest thoughts. I did pay for the shoes $225, and I do run marathons and whatnot, but I'm not like an elite runner or anything. I just really love shoes. So that's why I picked up the shoes, and I kind of wanted to review them for you guys. But overall, overall, I don't think that this shoe is worth it, but if you want to treat yourself, or if you're a sneaker enthusiast or a really elite runner and whatnot, I do think that there is a use case for this shoe. But if you are not, or if you're looking for a really good value, I think you should look elsewhere. I will be comparing this shoe to the Nike Vomero Plus as well as the ASICS Superblast 2s. Let me know if you want me to compare them to anything else, and I will work on that. But yeah, that's gonna pretty much wrap up my review on the ASICS Megablast. I think that they're a fantastic shoe, price aside. But with the price in mind, yeah, maybe not for everybody, but it is a very, very good shoe in my opinion. So yeah, that's gonna pretty much wrap up the review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below if I missed anything. If you have any questions, I will try to answer everyone. It's just give me some time and I'll try to reply. But yeah, I really appreciate your guys' support, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.